Let's begin our discussion on typhoid fever. Typhoid fever is systemic infection caused by Salmonella typhi. This disease is clinically characterized by high-grade fever, which remains for about 3 to 4 weeks, gastrointestinal symptoms, splenomegaly, and bradycardia. We can say typhoid fever is systemic infection and it is caused by Salmonella typhi, and it occurs because of ingestion of contaminated food or because of ingestion of contaminated water. Most of the major epidemics of typhoid fever, they occurred because of pollution of public water supplies. Let us try to understand what is paratyphoid fever. Paratyphoid fever is similar to typhoid fever, but it is less severe disease and it is caused by Salmonella paratyphi A, Salmonella paratyphi B, or rarely it can be caused by Salmonella paratyphi C. Let us try to understand one more terminology, that is enteric fever. Whenever we say enteric fever, it is mixed infection. That is, it is combination of typhoid fever plus paratyphoid fever. Enteric fever is an infection which is caused by Salmonella typhi as well as Salmonella paratyphi A, B or C. Problem statement related with typhoid fever. First, at global level, typhoid fever shows global distribution and predominantly it occurs in those areas where sanitation is poor and where there is lack of safe drinking water supply. Typhoid fever is one of the public health problem in developing areas and it is major burden in Asia. In the year 2004, global annual estimate of cases were 21 million and deaths were 2,16,000 to 6 lakh. And majority of this burden was seen in Asia. Annual cases reported are about 11 to 20 million, whereas annual deaths which are reported is 1,28,000 to 1,61,000. What is the scenario of typhoid fever in industrialized countries? In industrialized countries or developed countries, morbidity as well as mortality related to typhoid fever is reduced or it is decreased in these countries. What is the reason for this? In industrialized countries, reduced morbidity and reduced mortality, it is because of, first thing, improvement in living conditions which are related to sanitation, and second thing is improvement in the treatment related with the use of antimicrobial agents. One more global problem is there which is related with the typhoid fever. What is this problem? This is the problem of emergence of drug resistant strains of Salmonella typhi. Typhoid fever caused by such strains is known as typhoid fever caused by multi-drug resistant strains. This problem is mainly noticed in Southeast Asia. When we say MDR strains of Salmonella typhi, so these strains includes the Salmonella typhi strains which shows resistance to the first line drugs used in the treatment of typhoid fever. What are these first line drugs? These drugs mainly includes chloramphenicol, ampicillin and clotrimazole. Whenever infection with MDR strains occurs in children less than 2 years of age, it shows increased rate of complications. It also shows increase in mortality rate. Infections occurring in this age group because of MDR strains, definitely it contributes more to the mortality of typhoid fever. One more problem which is seen with MDR strains is there is increased rate of development of convalescent carriers. So this is 10 times more if we compare this with the drug sensitive strains of Salmonella typhi. So to recall, what are the problems related to MDR strains? It includes increased rate of complications, increased rate of mortality and increased rate of development of convalescent carriers. So in India, various outbreaks reported which occurred due to multi-drug resistant strains of Salmonella typhi or MDR strains. The distribution of typhoid fever is endemic in India, and this endemicity is stable endemicity. The endemicity of cholera, where we already discussed, endemicity of cholera is not stable, whereas endemicity of typhoid fever is stable. What is meaning of stable endemicity? Means the cases of typhoid fever can be reported throughout year. That is stable endemicity. What are the statistical data related with typhoid cases? If you compare the data which is given in 25th edition with the previous editions. In 25th edition, it is 2017's data is given, where the cases reported includes 2.22 million and deaths reported includes 493. But the statistics of previous edition in 2013, it was 1.53 million cases and only 361 deaths. So what it is suggestive of? Numbers very clearly indicates that problem of typhoid fever is definitely increasing in India. Number of cases, number of deaths, both have increased as compared to previous years. Where is the major problem of typhoid fever seen in India? So it is mainly seen in Uttar Pradesh, it is seen in West Bengal, it is seen in Bihar, it is seen in Andhra Pradesh, as well as it is seen in Karnataka. So these are the areas where majority of cases of typhoid fever are reported. Epidemiological determinants. By now, all of you know, whenever we use the term epidemiological determinants, it includes understanding of three important epidemiological factors, that is agent factors, host factors and environmental factors related to particular disease. Here the disease we are discussing is typhoid fever. Agent factors, as you know, this is bacterial infection caused by Salmonella typhi. And paratyphoid fever is caused by Salmonella paratyphi A, Salmonella paratyphi B or Salmonella paratyphi C. What is the characteristic feature of these bacilli? These are gram-negative bacilli. These are motile bacilli. They show presence of peritrichate flagellae, with the help of which they are motile. But the most important characteristic feature of Salmonella typhi is it is capable of surviving inside the cell. Intracellular survival inside the host is the important feature. In addition to this microbiological features, it includes these are facultative aerobes, and these are the bacteria which belongs to the family Enterobacteriaceae. These are gram-negative motile bacilli. Motility is with the help of peritrichate flagellae. These are facultative aerobes and these are capable of surviving inside the host cells. These bacilli can be killed by pasteurization or they can be killed by disinfection. Few more features that are related with its survival and its structure. Salmonella typhi, it includes 3 types of antigens, or you can say 3 different types of antigens are present in this bacilli. It includes cell wall antigen, which is known as O antigen. So this is somatic cell wall O antigen. The antigen which is present on the flagella is known as flagellar antigen, and this is H antigen. And plus these bacilli have capsule and the capsule carries VI antigen, which can be also called as virulence antigen. So 3 types of antigen present on cell wall, flagella and capsule. These are called as somatic cell wall antigen, flagellar H antigen and capsular VI antigen. Where we can find these bacilli in our environment. Salmonella typhi can be found in water, ice, milk, food as well as in soil. As far as water is concerned, Salmonella typhi, they are not capable of multiplying in water, but they can survive in water for 2 days and maximum period of survival can be 1 week. So they will just remain live. They won't multiply in water and this duration is 2 to 7 days. As far as ice and ice cream is concerned, in ice and ice cream, Salmonella typhi can survive for more than 1 month period. Whereas if sewage is used for irrigation of soil, in such soil, these bacilli can survive up to 70 days during winter season and up to 35 days during summer season. Now what about food and presence of Salmonella typhi? If food is contaminated with Salmonella typhi, food is basically a bad conductor of heat. So it provides shelter to typhoid bacilli. These bacilli not only survives in food, but in food it is capable to multiply. Typhoid bacilli can grow very rapidly in milk and at the same time it do not alter taste of milk, it do not alter appearance of milk. It is capable of surviving, it is capable of multiplying in milk. So pasteurization is the process by which we can destroy Salmonella typhi present in milk. Whenever it is present in water, disinfection is the simple procedure by which we can destroy the Salmonella typhi present in water. What is reservoir of infection for Salmonella typhi? The only reservoir of infection is man. Now whenever we say man, it is a vague terminology. Your specific answer should be cases as well as carriers of typhoid fever are reservoir of infection. Cases are of two types. These can be mild cases or they can be severe cases. This is depending upon the grade of severity. And second type, it can be mixed cases. Carriers, three different types of carriers can be seen in typhoid fever. It includes temporary carriers, incubatory carriers, and convalescent carriers. Temporary carriers, as the name suggests, these carriers will shed bacilli for short period of time during incubation period or during convalescent periods. So accordingly, these are incubatory temporary carriers or convalescent temporary carriers. So these temporary carriers, they can shed bacilli or they can excrete these bacilli in their feces or even sometimes in urine for the period of 6 weeks to 8 weeks. I repeat, temporary carriers are of two types, incubatory or convalescent, shedding bacilli during incubation period or during convalescent period, and duration is 6 to 8 weeks. Second types of carriers are chronic carrier. Chronic carriers are those carriers which excrete typhoid bacilli in their feces for the period of 1 year or even more than 1 year. Chronic carriers can excrete bacilli for several years and it may be as long as 50 years. The best example of chronic carriers is Typhoid Mary. Typhoid Mary, she gave rise to more than 1300 cases in her life. As far as shedding of bacilli by chronic carriers is concerned, this shedding may occur continuously or it may occur intermittently. These people may shed typhoid bacilli in their feces either continuously or either intermittently. And what is average carrier rate? Average carrier rate is 3% and its range is 2 to 5%. So of the cases, 2 to 5% or on an average we can say 3% people become chronic carrier. Even after treatment with antibiotics, small number of people who recover from typhoid fever, they continue to harbor bacteria in their intestinal tract or gallbladders often for years. This is the definition of chronic carriers, and they shed bacilli in their feces, and at the same time these carriers are hazardous in the community. Why they are hazardous in the community? Because they are capable of transmitting the bacilli and they are capable of contaminating our environment. What are other types of carriers? One more type of carrier, that is in addition to temporary carriers, which we further classified as incubatory carriers or convalescent carriers. Chronic carrier, one more type, depends on the portal of exit. So depending upon portal of exit, these carriers can be fecal carriers or they can be urinary carriers. Fecal carriers are commonly found in typhoid fever, whereas urinary carriers are rare. Let's try to understand what is source of infection. Source of infection, again we can study from two aspects, primary source and secondary sources. So primary sources, it includes feces and urine of cases as well as carriers containing Salmonella typhi. Primary sources, whatever feces or urine it is excreted by cases and carriers, if they contain Salmonella typhi, this will become primary source. What is secondary source? Secondary sources, it occurs due to further contamination. It includes contaminated water, contaminated food, or even it can be contaminated fingers. And secondary source of contamination, it includes important vector housefly. Now let's try to understand host factors related with typhoid fever. Host factors: age. Highest incidence of typhoid fever, it is seen in 5 to 19 years of age group. After 20 years, incidence lowers or incidence falls, and this is due to immunity acquired after clinical infection or after subclinical infection. In some Asian urban slums, incidence of typhoid fever is seen in preschool children, that is under 5 age group, and it is also seen in 5 to 15 years of age group. As far as gender is concerned, males are most commonly affected. So cases you can find more in males, but carrier rate, it is more in females. Immunity. All ages are susceptible to infection, but there are certain host factors that contribute to the resistance to Salmonella typhi. These factors includes gastric acidity and local intestinal immunity. As these typhoid bacilli, they enter through ingestion, the first barrier is gastric acidity, or we can say the first barrier against Salmonella typhi in man is presence of gastric hydrochloric acid. Then local immunity at intestinal level, it provides protection against infection at the same time as typhoid bacilli are intracellular organism. Cell mediated immunity plays important role in defense mechanism, as well as humoral immunity also plays important role in protecting the individual. First defense barrier is presence of gastric acid, then it is cell mediated immunity, as well as it is humoral immunity, as well as local intestinal immunity. All these will provide protection against typhoid fever or when these bacilli enters into the body. Antibodies which are produced following infection, as well as antibodies which are produced following immunization. How to differentiate which antibodies are produced following natural infection and which are produced following immunization. As you know, there are three different types of antigens: somatic O antigen, flagellar H antigen, and VI antigen. Out of these antigens, antibodies are produced against somatic O antigen and flagellar H antigen. Antibodies to somatic antigen, it is higher in individuals with infection, whereas antibody to flagellar antigen is higher in immunized individuals. Easy differentiation: antibodies to O antigen, they are mainly formed following natural infection, whereas antibody to flagellar antigen, H antigen, it is mainly found in, or higher concentration of this you will found in immunized individuals. Is there any possibility that second attack of typhoid fever can occur? Yes. So second attack of typhoid fever can occur following large oral dose of Salmonella typhi. What are various environmental factors? Environmental factors, the cases of typhoid fever are reported throughout year. As already we had discussed, it shows stable endemicity. Since it shows stable endemicity in India the cases will be reported or cases are reported throughout the year. Now in which season more cases are likely to be reported? It is rainy season, which refers to the month July, August and September. So during July, August and September, increased incidence of typhoid fever can be seen. As you know, Salmonella typhi, they are mainly found in water, milk, food, and they are capable of surviving in water for 2 to 7 days. They are capable of surviving in ice and ice cream for 30 days, and in soil irrigated with sewage for 70 days during winter season and for 35 days during summer season. In addition to this, what are various social factors which can contribute to occurrence of typhoid fever? Social factors related with typhoid fever occurrence is poor sanitation, contamination of drinking water sources, lack of safe water supply, then habit of people like open defecation and open urination, lack of facilities for disposal of excreta, lack of personal hygiene and environmental insanitation, where one of the most important index which we use to see environmental insanitation is house flies. So presence of house flies is another factor. In addition to houseflies, there is one more index which is used as an index of general sanitation in the country. This index is concerned with occurrence of typhoid fever. Thus, presence of typhoid fever cases in the particular country indicates general insanitation in that country. And if you can recall, annual incidence in India is in millions. Millions of typhoid fever cases occurs in India every year. How typhoid fever is transmitted? What is mode of transmission of typhoid fever? Typhoid fever is transmitted by fecal oral route. The transmission can be direct transmission, it can be indirect transmission, or it can be mechanical transmission. Direct transmission, it occurs through contaminated fingers, whereas indirect transmission, it occurs through consumption of water, contaminated water, milk or food. And mechanical transmission can occur through houseflies. Houseflies, they can carry bacilli from feces of cases and carriers to the water or food, and thus they play important role in mechanical transmission. In cases of urinary carriers, typhoid fever is transmitted via urine-oral route. Various channels of transmission for Salmonella typhi. To the left side, it's feces or urine from cases or carriers which may contain Salmonella typhi, and from this Salmonella typhi, water may get contaminated, soil if sewage is used for irrigation, flies can carry these Salmonella typhi to the food, as well as fingers of cases and carriers which are contaminated can also contaminate food, and this may carry these typhoid bacilli to the mouth of the new host. In this figure, please note various factors which can influence occurrence of typhoid fever. These factors includes cultural factors, social factors and economic factors. In addition, occurrence of typhoid fever is closely related to quality of life. The clinical features of typhoid fever. The portal of entry for these bacilli is ingestion. Whenever a person consumes contaminated food or contaminated water, or whenever a person will have contact with contaminated fingers, these bacilli are carried to the stomach. First defense mechanism is gastric acid at the stomach. Those bacilli which can cross this barrier, they are carried to the intestine. In intestine, through Peyer's patches, these bacilli are carried to the blood. This is primary bacteremia. This stage is very transient. because very soon the bacteria are engulfed by reticuloendothelial cells. But as you know, important feature of these bacteria, they are capable of surviving as well as multiplying inside the cells. Inside RE cells, these bacteria, they survives as well as multiplies. After multiplication, these bacilli, they are released and again they enters in bloodstream. This is secondary bacteremia. As compared to primary bacteremia, secondary bacteremia, it persists for few weeks. And this is the stage when patient becomes symptomatic. Whenever you will come across a case of typhoid fever with peculiar signs and symptoms of typhoid fever, this corresponds to bacteremia, means this is the stage when bacilli are present in circulation. One more thing, in case of chronic carriers, these bacilli, they survive as well as multiply in the gallbladder, and from the gallbladder they are excreted continuously or intermittently by the chronic carriers into the environment. What is incubation period for typhoid fever? Incubation period on an average it is 10 days to 14 days, but range can be 3 days to 3 weeks. We said range is from 3 days to 3 weeks, but on an average incubation period can be 10 days to 14 days. And it mainly depends on the dose of bacilli which is ingested. The factor which can influence, which can affect incubation period is the dose of the bacilli. What are various clinical features of typhoid fever? Clinical features: onset is insidious, or in children it is abrupt onset. The most important or prime feature that you can get in typhoid fever is fever. Here we are talking about classical as well as untreated cases. Whatever things we are discussing, you can see in classical cases of typhoid fever or those cases which are not treated at all. Classical case presents with high grade fever, and the characteristic pattern of fever in typhoid fever is step ladder type of fever. I repeat, it is step ladder type of fever. What it means? Fever rises gradually and it reaches peak level by the end of first week. Now after first week, fever stabilizes and it remains for 2 to 3 weeks. After this, fever comes down gradually. Step ladder rise in fever. Gradually it will reach to the peak by the end of first week. Then it will stabilize for 2 to 3 weeks, and then after 3 to 4 weeks it will start declining. This is in untreated cases. What can be the symptoms associated with fever? Fever may be associated with chills. Some patients may have headache, or even some patients may have dry cough or sore throat associated with fever. One more thing you can notice, the pulse rate may not rise in proportionate to rise in temperature. So what you can find is bradycardia. If there is high grade fever, patient may have mental dullness or there can be delirious state of the patient. One more feature that you can get in typhoid fever cases related with GI system is constipation. Constipation is frequently seen in many cases, but few cases may have diarrhea also. Diarrhea is mainly manifested in second week. This is the symptom that you can get in second week of illness, and like we said, fever has characteristic pattern of step ladder type. Same way, diarrhea, the characteristic feature of diarrhea in typhoid fever is pea soup diarrhea. This is pea soup diarrhea. One more important manifestation you can get in second week of illness, this is rash. The type of rash is maculopapular rash. This rash is described as rose spot rash. Why it is called as rose spot rash? Because it is erythematous, it is macular rash, it is papular rash. The size of papules may be 2 millimeters to 3 millimeters. It generally appears in small crops and it is seen over chest and abdomen. One more important feature of this rash is it is blanching rash. That is, if you apply pressure, it will become pale and it starts disappearing in 3 to 4 days. So what manifestations we are getting in second week? So in second week of illness, there can be pea soup diarrhea or rose spot rash. Few more signs you can see in a case of typhoid fever. It includes splenomegaly and few cases may also have hepatomegaly. Don't forget to look at the tongue of your patient. His tongue shows central coating. This is the picture, that is what you can get in first week, second week, and entire duration of illness is about 2 to 3 weeks. In uncomplicated patients, these symptoms disappears after 3 to 4 weeks and temperature returns to normal. Must know points related to clinical features of typhoid fever includes step ladder type of fever, pea soup diarrhea, rose spot rash, and splenomegaly, bradycardia. What complications are there that you can see in case of typhoid fever? One of the complications of typhoid fever is intestinal hemorrhage. Bleeding is common thing. And what is the reason for bleeding? There is erosion of blood vessels in Peyer's patches which results in bleeding. This complication can be seen in about 20% of cases. Bleeding may be occult or sometimes there may be presence of gross blood in stools. Sometimes in very few cases there may occur massive hemorrhage. So when you are monitoring your case of typhoid fever, if you notice there is sudden drop in blood pressure and sudden drop in temperature or suddenly temperature comes down, think of this complication. There is possibility of massive hemorrhage and you must inquire about occult blood as well as frank blood. One complication is bleeding. Second complication can be perforation. Common site is distal ileum. This complication is generally likely to occur in third week of illness. Again, if your patient suddenly complains of severe pain in right abdominal quadrant or right lower quadrant of abdomen, this is suggestive of perforation. By now you know differential diagnosis of pain at that site. It can be appendicitis also, but in case of typhoid fever, if there is pain in right lower quadrant, so this is suggestive of perforation, and further it may lead to localized peritonitis or even generalized peritonitis. Few rare complications or less likely to occur complications it includes. As you know, these bacilli, they circulate in blood, so there is possibility that they can localize in any organ and may result in abscess formation, but it is a rare complication to occur. Few more additions to this, it includes arthritis, periostitis, chondritis, osteomyelitis, pyelonephritis, pneumonia, thrombophlebitis, or myocarditis. What we said about bradycardia, so commonly you can get bradycardia in patients with myocarditis. Again, some rare complications are there which are associated with central nervous system. Here, the cause for complications, it includes vasculitis and thrombosis of small cerebral vessels, and the rare manifestations, it includes convulsions or encephalitis, cerebellar ataxia, extrapyramidal signs, myopathy, and very rarely it can be deafness. Rare complication list is big, but at least don't forget common complications that are likely to occur specifically in untreated cases is bleeding and perforation. Regarding typhoid ulcers, you might have studied in second year. Typhoid ulcers are also common to occur, but healing of these ulcers, it occurs without cicatrization. So the complication related with intestinal obstruction due to typhoid ulcers is not seen. One more thing related with typhoid fever is relapse. Relapse you can see in 5 to 10% patients. These patients show relapse within a period of 1 month of resolution of symptoms. After resolution of the symptoms of typhoid fever, again in 1 month, these patients shows signs and symptoms of typhoid fever, but severity is reduced. As well as if you will go for blood culture, the blood culture will come positive. This is about relapse related with the typhoid fever. Case fatality rate in typhoid fever, it varies from 1% to 4%. Case fatality rate in children less than 4 years of age is 10 times higher than older children. Case fatality rate in children less than 4 years of age is 4%, whereas case fatality rate in older children is 0.4%. Case fatality rate increases in untreated cases, and in untreated cases, case fatality rate may vary from 10% to 20%. How you can differentiate typhoid fever from other diseases based on clinical background. One of the most important differential diagnosis, it includes malaria. Now, how to differentiate malaria and typhoid fever? So malaria, again, if you will find classical case of malaria, there are three stages: chill stage, hot stage and sweating stage. These three stages are not seen in typhoid fever. What you can see in typhoid fever is step ladder type of fever. This step ladder pattern of fever you can't see in malaria cases. Malaria cases will have frank rigors. Such frank rigors are not seen in typhoid case. In typhoid patients, fever may be associated with chills. In complicated cases of typhoid fever, there can be intestinal hemorrhage or there can be intestinal perforation. Whereas complicated case of malaria may show cerebral malaria and manifestations like convulsions, whereas anemia and hemolytic jaundice is common in complicated malaria case. These complications are not seen in typhoid case. This is between typhoid fever and malaria. Then second differential diagnosis is viral hepatitis and typhoid fever. Viral hepatitis, one common or important sign that you can get is icterus. So based on presence of icterus, you can differentiate between viral hepatitis and typhoid fever case. Then in case of pneumonia cases may have respiratory manifestations associated with fever like cough, chest pain, difficulty in breathing. These respiratory manifestations are less commonly seen in typhoid fever. Another differential diagnosis is between eruptive fevers and typhoid fever. We said in typhoid fever, during second week of illness, rose spot rash can be seen. What are other diseases where you can get maculopapular rash? So all these fevers will come in the list of differential diagnosis for typhoid fever. Let's talk about one or two diseases here. Regarding measles, how you can differentiate between measles and typhoid fever. In measles, there is maculopapular rash, but this rash is seen in early stage of illness. In typhoid fever, rash is seen in second week of illness. In both diseases, it is maculopapular rash. But in typhoid fever, the papules are elevated. They are having 2 to 3 millimeter size. Such rash is not found in measles. The other symptoms which you can find in measles, it includes cough, coryza and conjunctivitis. So these manifestations are not seen in typhoid case. One more classical as well as clinical differentiating feature between measles and typhoid fever. In measles, if you will examine oral cavity of your patient, you can find Koplik's spots. Presence of Koplik's spot is seen in measles, which is not seen in typhoid fever. Another eruptive fever, take example of rubella. In case of rubella, fever is mild, whereas in typhoid fever, fever is high grade. In rubella, maculopapular rash you can see. Even in typhoid fever, maculopapular rash is seen. But in case of rubella, the rash will appear as well as disappear very soon, and in majority of cases of rubella you can find lymphadenopathy. Lymphadenopathy is not commonly seen in typhoid fever patients. Another differentiating disease, it includes, in relation to age, it includes rheumatic fever. We said typhoid fever highest incidence is seen between 5 to 19 years of age, whereas rheumatic fever you must suspect in children below 15 years of age or up to 15 years of age. Clinical differential feature is what you can find in rheumatic fever is migrating polyarthritis. So this migrating polyarthritis mainly affecting larger joints is not seen in typhoid fever cases. Another differential diseases, it includes rickettsial diseases. How to diagnose the cases of typhoid fever? Laboratory diagnosis, the sample can be blood or stool. Ideal test to be done is culture. Blood culture, it comes positive nearly by the end of first week. Stool culture, it comes positive by the end of second week. Even bone marrow sample can be taken, but the most important diagnostic test is blood culture. Thus, Salmonella typhi can be isolated from blood or from stool or from bone marrow. Some serological tests are there. The commonly performed test is Felix Vidal test. Felix Vidal test, it comes positive when there is rise in antibody titer, but this test comes positive by the end of first week. So any patient having history of fever just for 1 or 2 days, please don't advise this test. Just wait for the appropriate history, because O antibody, it requires near about 6 to 8 days for its appearance, whereas H antibody requires 10 to 12 days for its appearance. This test comes positive after 1 week. At the same time, there is possibility that 30% culture positive cases may show negative Vidal test, and this is because the sensitivity and specificity of Vidal test is less. At the same time, there is possibility that you may get false positive results, as the O antigen and H antigen are shared with Salmonella and they are shared with other Enterobacteriaceae. In cases if infection is caused by other bacteria belonging to the family Enterobacteriaceae, there is possibility of false positive results with Felix Vidal test. There are some new serological tests where we can get quick results of the test. These new tests, they are reliable, and it includes ideal Tubex test. Within few minutes results are available. It helps in detection of IgM09 antibodies. Typhidot test. Typhidot test is capable of detecting specific IgM and IgG antibodies. Subtest Typhidot M, it detects specific IgM antibodies only. And deep stick test, in this test IgM antibodies, they bind with the lipopolysaccharide antigen of Salmonella typhi, and after binding it is stained, and with the help of staining it is possible to identify the antibodies. This is about diagnosis related with typhoid fever. We talked about culture and we talked about the serological tests which are available for the diagnosis. What is typhoid fever? It is systemic infection caused by Salmonella typhi. And what is paratyphoid fever? Paratyphoid fever is caused by Salmonella paratyphi A, B or C. And what is enteric fever? Enteric fever is mixed infection of typhoid fever plus paratyphoid fever. Typhoid fever, this problem, it is mainly seen in all those countries with poor environmental sanitation. Agent factor responsible for typhoid fever is Salmonella typhi. This Salmonella typhi, it has three antigens: somatic O antigen, flagellar H antigen and capsular VI or virulence antigen. These bacteria, they are capable of surviving in water, they are capable of surviving in ice cream as well as soil irrigated with sewage. But at the same time, they are capable of surviving as well as multiplying in food. The reservoir of infection for Salmonella typhi, it includes temporary carriers like incubatory carriers, convalescent carriers or chronic carriers, as well as severe case of typhoid fever or mild case of typhoid fever. Primary source of infection can be feces and urine of cases or carrier, whereas secondary source of infection, it can be contaminated food or contaminated water. Most common incidence of typhoid fever, it is seen between the age of 5 to 19 years. Cases are commonly seen in males, whereas carrier rate is more in females. These bacilli, they are mainly transmitted by fecal oral route, and typhoid fever is most commonly seen in rainy season, which corresponds to the breeding of flies. But if you can recall, the endemicity of typhoid fever is stable endemicity. So in country like India, the cases of typhoid fever can be reported throughout the year. Regarding pathogenesis of typhoid fever, portal of entry is ingestion. You should remember primary and secondary bacteremia, and secondary bacteremia coincides with appearance of clinical signs and symptoms of typhoid fever. Incubation period of typhoid fever is usually 10 to 14 days, but it may range from 3 days to 3 weeks. Incubation period depends upon the dose of the bacilli which is ingested. Clinically, onset of typhoid fever is insidious, and in case of children, it may be abrupt onset. Fever is generally high-grade fever which is associated with chills, headache, cough or sore throat. Some patients may have abdominal pain and constipation. The characteristic feature is step ladder pattern of fever. Another important characteristic feature is pea soup diarrhea and rose spot rash. Pea soup diarrhea and rose spot rash, these manifestations are generally seen during second week of illness. Rose spot rash in typhoid fever, it is mainly found on the trunk. It appears as pink papule which is 2 to 3 mm in diameter, and the most important feature of the rash is that it fades on the pressure and it disappears in 3 to 4 days. Another signs which you can see in typhoid fever cases is splenomegaly and hepatomegaly. Bradycardia is another important manifestation that you can see in typhoid fever cases. Complications of typhoid fever includes intestinal hemorrhage which is manifested by sudden drop in temperature, and there are signs of shock. Another complication is intestinal perforation. Some rare complications in typhoid fever cases can be pneumonia, thrombophlebitis, myocarditis, cholecystitis, nephritis or osteomyelitis. Diagnosis of typhoid fever cases includes microbiological procedures like isolation of Salmonella typhi. Salmonella typhi can be isolated from blood sample or from stool sample or even from bone marrow sample. Serological test commonly used is Felix Vidal test. New diagnostic test that can be used in diagnosis of typhoid fever, it includes ideal Tubex test, typhidot test and typhidot M test. Even we can use deep stick test for diagnosis of typhoid fever. But the most important and reliable test for diagnosis of typhoid fever is culture, stool culture or blood culture. For diagnosis of typhoid fever, we can use either microbiological procedures or serological procedure or even the new diagnostic tests. We will be continuing remaining part of typhoid fever in next session.